The FCC has made its proposal to take the initial steps to do away with net neutrality. Now, Ajit Pai, who is the head of the FCC and also a very, very strong conservative who's very much against any regulation that protects the consumer, is the person spearheading this proposal. And it would undo the 2015 rules that implemented net neutrality with Title II classifications. So Title II classification is really important because it leads to more oversight to ensure that internet service providers don't do anything shady when it comes to slowing down the speeds of some sites or blocking sites that might not agree with their business model, things like that. So strong net neutrality rules were passed in 2015. Those rules reclassified internet providers as common carriers under Title II of the Telecommunications Act, which subject them to tough utility-style regulation. So first, if you do away with the regulations that were implemented in 2015, it'll reclassify internet providers as Title I information services. Second, it'll prevent the FCC from adapting any net neutrality rules to practices that internet providers haven't thought up yet. And third, it opens questions about what to do with several key net neutrality rules, like no blocking or throttling of apps and websites that were implemented in 2015. So this is a very, very bad sign. The FCC is set to vote on this on May 18th. And it's important for us to resist this as much as possible, because if internet service providers get their way and net neutrality is done away with, well, there are certain sites that are really gonna suffer. And they're doing this under the guise of, oh, we wanna protect small businesses. How does this protect small businesses? If anything, this actually harms small businesses. If you're not a giant like Netflix or Google and you don't have the money or the connections to find loopholes or work along with something like, no net neutrality, then what are you gonna do, right? If you're an up and coming media organization and you're criticizing some of these major corporations, what are you gonna do?
And by the way, that also applies to Breitbart, that applies to almost every right-wing blog there is. And if you think Verizon and AT&T are gonna look after you out of the goodness of their hearts, you don't understand capitalism at all. Stop embarrassing yourself and calling yourself a conservative. So in this case, Google and Facebook actually happen to be the good guys and they might ride to the rescue. I'll explain that in a second. But I think that net neutrality is the second most important issue in America. I think getting money out of politics so that our politicians don't do this in the first place is the number one issue. But then net neutrality is second because it affects all other issues. Because the only avenue that both the right and the left have to actually fight against the establishment is the internet. And so if the establishment and multi-billion-dollar national corporations, multinational corporations grab control of the internet, well, yeah, they could do all the things that that Ajit Pai would now allow them to do. They could block your app or website. Sad day for you. Oh, it just couldn't make it through my ISP. Well, so it exists. It's just that those customers can't get access to it. They could slow it down completely. They can create fast lanes for themselves. No, we didn't slow yours down so much. Ours is just much faster. So they come to us instead of you.
Right, and also keep in mind that there are huge conglomerates, there are internet service providers that have essentially purchased media organizations. And so, I don't know, maybe there's a competitor and they don't want that competitor to actually compete in a free market against the media organization that they've acquired. So why wouldn't they slow down the speeds for the competitors? This is a nightmare, right? Because anyone who would want to speak truth to power could be victimized by a lack of net neutrality. And so we want a free flow of ideas, we want a free marketplace of ideas, and if you do away with net neutrality, there is no guarantee. And in fact, the only guarantee we have is that people will not receive the information necessary to be informed members of a democratic system, and that's why this is a huge problem.
And did you know that 73% of locations in the country have only one broadband provider? So that's called a monopoly.
That's insane.
So there's nothing you can do about it. You say, hey, I don't like Verizon in your neck of the woods if it's Verizon. slowing down the conservative websites and blocking certain apps. So I'm going to go with someone else. Sad day for you. You can't go with anybody else. It's a monopoly. Adam Smith warned us about monopolies when he explained capitalism all those hundreds of years ago. It's the first thing you think of when if you're true, by the way, conservative intellectual, is you're worried about monopolies because that they kill free markets. The 24% of the country is duopoly. You only have two options. Okay, that means 97% of the country you only either have one or two options. Now this Ajit Pai guy is so intellectually dishonest. So he's dishonest in every way imaginable. First of all, did you know that he's a former Verizon lawyer? Oh. What a wonderful coincidence that he now is setting the rules for Verizon. But that's not going to bias him at all.
Just a coincidence. That's it.
Yeah. So he says in another rule that they just announced, where they allow the broadband companies against to hike rates, so that would make the broadband much more expensive for libraries and schools and so many different places.
Yeah, no, I got to jump in there because it's. So let me give you all the details with the proper wording, okay? And Vice reported on this. They said the FCC voted to approve a controversial plan to deregulate the $45 billion market for business-to-business broadband, also known as business data services, by eliminating price caps that make internet access more affordable for thousands of small businesses, schools, libraries, and hospitals. The price caps, which have been in place for years, are designed to protect small businesses and other community institutions from predatory behavior by monopoly broadband providers like AT&T and Verizon. So look, these price caps are super important when you consider the fact that most people are dealing with this monopoly, right? I'm dealing with it. I have no option other than Spectrum. Spectrum treats me like crap, right? They charge way too much for insanely slow and shitty internet service. But what am I gonna do about it? That's the only provider that I can have. And so think about the cost that this will have on small businesses that need, fast internet connection, more than I do, or these schools and libraries. It's just a nightmare. And when Ajit Pai says, "Oh, I'm worried about the small businesses," intellectually dishonest is the perfect way to put it.
So lying about the small businesses does the exact opposite. Second of all, he says they changed the rule in a way that they say, no, it's not monopoly, because in a lot of these cases, another provider is half a mile away. So let's just game plan, just play this out so you understand what he's talking about. Let's say you have AT&T and he's like, no, but Verizon's half a mile away. Okay, great, can I get Verizon instead? No, they're not in your area, they're half a mile away. Wait, so then it's a monopoly. AT&T is the only one I can go to in that case. No, but Verizon's half a mile away. I know, so can I get Verizon? No, you can't get Verizon. Well, then it's a monopoly. Nope, it's not, because Verizon's half a mile away. But I can't get Verizon, right? And I can't get anything else. So how unbelievably dishonest are you that they put it in there? So it's okay, it's not a monopoly. They're half a mile away, you can't get them, but they're close to you. So these are the tricks that they're playing. And so is it to help the broadband providers that he used to be a paid
employee of?
Yeah, of course it is. Of course, that's the whole point of this. So and then finally, why might Google and Facebook be the heroes here? There are two groups that are opposing them other than regular citizens. The Internet Association, and that represents 40 of the top internet companies, Google, Facebook, Netflix, etc. And they're saying no. Actually, as Anna points out, it could help Google and Facebook if this went through, because they're so large that they could pay the ransom, right? And for anyone who isn't large enough to pay the ransom, all their competition would get wiped out. And so that's why they thought long and hard before they decided to be in favor of net neutrality. It was a close call, but they came out on the right side. And once they said, okay, we're for net neutrality, Obama was like, oh yeah, after thinking about it for a while, and a week after Google and Facebook announced, I've decided that since a lot of my funders are in Silicon Valley, I mean, because I care about all the people who sent me signatures, I will decide that I'm for net neutrality. So Google and Facebook in a lot of ways saved the internet when they did that. They gotta stay on our side. If they're not on our side, we're all screwed, because all these politicians care about is their donors. And then another group is called a Y Combinator. So that's why I tell you guys, we get upset when the rich get too many tax cuts and corporations get too many tax cuts, and that's not just. But I always tell you, don't be blanket against rich people or corporations as a thing, right? We don't want them to have unfair advantages. What is the Y Combinator? It's a group of 800 startups and investors, yes, wealthy people, who are saying, no, wait a minute. We invested in the internet as it is. You don't get to change the rules later and go, all your small businesses that you invested into, or even large businesses you invest into, we just screwed them because we're crony capitalists. Verizon and AT&T and the broadband providers are larger, and they paid me a larger bribe. I mean, political donation, right? So I'm gonna change all the rules, and I'm gonna make sure your businesses get wiped out in favor of the crony capitalism of supporting the broadband providers. So these investors are like, no, we don't agree to that. So in this case, Y Combinator and the Internet Association are huge heroes. Yes. That combined with, we must do resistance. Left, right, middle, it doesn't matter. If you love the internet, you gotta protect the internet. They're coming for it. And one last piece of preposterous excuse from Ajit Pai, who is one of the most dangerous guys in America.
Yeah,
doesn't believe in freedom.
I wish he would just shut his pie hole.
Okay. He said, oh, no. If these broadband providers can't make more money, then they would run out of money, so they couldn't provide enough broadband to poor and minority areas. You know what that means? We're holding them hostage. If you don't give us what we want, we're gonna cut access to poor and minority areas.
And also,
that is so sick.
And it's also very clear that he doesn't genuinely care about poor minority areas or rural areas in America, especially when you consider how the FCC voted to eliminate those price caps that protected people living in rural places in the United States. He's, again, intellectually dishonest, and we fought and won on the issue of net neutrality in the past. It's unfortunate that we have to continue fighting, because as soon as we stop paying attention, they try to pull this kind of stuff. But we gotta fight again, and we have to win again.
Young Turks membership creates independent media.
Believe me.
No ads.
Believe me.
All the shows.
Believe me.
On demand.
Believe me.
Support independent media.
Believe me.
It's awesome, tremendous, you'll love it.
Believe me.
And by the end, you'll be thinking,
I'm like a smart person.
tytnetwork.com/join.